Hello, I'm Daniela. Thank you for joining me. Tonight we have a special guest, Jamie Smale, who is an extraterrestrial. I hate to put words in your mouth, though. Would you say enthusiast, expert,
Uh,
hobby?
okay, yeah, that's a good question. I would say that I'm an enthusiast, and it's hobby is a strange word, but I'm certainly an enthusiast. I'm a believer.
You're a believer. Okay, I do have
Yeah.
a few questions for you. Number
Okay.
one, if you could share with us how many, well, I don't want to say how many because I don't think anybody could answer that, but what are the common aliens that are known to the human race?
Okay. Yeah. Well, officially none, because the governments of the world don't acknowledge the existence of UFOs. Although not all governments, I might add. I think some governments, some countries do acknowledge it, but certainly not in our governments, in our countries. But the alien types
That
that
is
have,
true, right? Some
yeah.
governments have released that information.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, yeah, and that would require a little bit of research to find out exactly what governments have. But I know that some have, and I think that certainly even our governments are more open to it now than they used to be. So anyway, your question was what type of aliens are known to man? Well, there are eyewitness testimony, and there are people that claim to channel aliens from different places. So the most well-known alien types that possibly exist I think like the Greys, the Anunnaki, the Reptilians, and some that are cited quite often. In fact, in America, where you're at, more in the southern states, is the Chupacabra. Are you familiar with the Chupacabra?
I am not.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's an interesting one.
Really?
They're often on farms. Well, when I say often, it wouldn't be too often, but that's
Otherwise, they'd be paying
otherwise.
rent or something, right?
Sorry,
Sorry.
I
I
beg your
said they would
pardon?
pay rent if they were staying on farms. But okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, the chupacabra, if you like do a Google search or a YouTube search, you'll see some footage or whatever. Maybe some are authentic, maybe some are not. But it's a strange looking creature. It's a hairless creature, like a dog, but hairless. And they are known to eat your cattle, right? Your livestock. So, but they don't just do that. They tend to suck all the blood. So, like, there will be a cow, say for example, and like farmers have gone out and found that the cow is lying there dead. But the strange thing is that there's no blood in the animal whatsoever. Every drip of it is taken out, and they reckon the chupacabra have got this like kind of straw, like maybe a tooth or something, and it's like a straw, and then they just extract all the blood. So it's
I
very
think that this
peculiar.
stuff is documented. I've never heard of anything like that.
Oh, really? Yeah, yeah. There is multiple collaborating testimony to this. So much so that it's been named. It's called the Chupacabra. Now, you wouldn't necessarily jump to the conclusion that it's extraterrestrial, right? You could say it's like some type of mutated animal or a rare species that we don't see very often, but it's strange in its behavior. It's not doesn't behave like wildlife, you know. And there's been cases where there's like a close association between UFO sightings and the chupacabra going on the prowl, maybe stealing a cow or something. But I'm not too hot on the topic of the chupacabra, but that's one of them for sure. And then we have the greys, which are the most famous type of alien because they account for about 60% of alien sightings. And the greys are so popular that even people who don't know anything about aliens or have no interest in aliens, they if you mention the word alien, it conjures in their mind a picture of a grey, with the huge almond eyes and the grey face and the whole, and like, you can go and buy a Halloween mask of a grey alien. They've made loads of movies. You know that movie Paul? Have you seen it? It's like a comedy and it's got a grey alien in it. Yeah. So like the greys are certainly the most popular, but not the kindest. Um, yeah, the Anunnaki, I think we'll talk about more as your interview continues, because they're an interesting alien type, and the reptilians are very interesting because the thing about the reptilians is that you wouldn't necessarily recognize one if you saw one because they are also renowned to be shapeshifters and they can take human form. So you wouldn't necessarily recognize a reptilian if you saw one.
Okay, I'm digressing a little bit, but that caught my interest with the shape shifting because
Mm.
I've spoken to people that believe they've come into contact with different kinds of aliens. Now, with the reptilians, would they be the one that the pupil on their eyes sometimes, what is it, goes elongated? Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, that's right. Like much like a cat's eyes, except cats aren't reptiles, but yeah, certainly snakes are the same. Yeah, the pupils they become vertical and thin, don't they? Yeah. And the eyelids, their eyes would kind of, they would blink this way rather than this way.
I haven't heard that because that would be kind of hard to fit in.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, some people claim to have witnessed this, but of course, it's not official. Like, you don't see it on the news. I don't know if it's
Someone's
true.
husband, she said
Sorry?
when someone was talking about their husband, and
Yeah.
it was a very unusual marriage. They were married for a long time, but they were in an argument, and she saw, I don't know what else it could mean. I think she believed he was a reptilian, and the pupils were long. I think that's the word, right? Elongated.
Right.
It was the first time in that point in time. This was years ago. I never heard of such a thing. So just
It's
kind of like,
interesting.
wow, okay, yeah, right. So
Yeah, very
people
interesting.
that say that they walk among us, even the famous
Mm.
psychic medium Sylvia Brown, she wrote a book on things like this, and she said it was quite common. So I wonder if you're more open to the possibility of aliens, and you have psychic mediumship abilities, if you're able to maybe communicate with them telepathically, or on, I don't know, just a
Mm.
theory of mine, but
Mm.
I someone that famous to have written a book about it. But yeah, and she would do different expeditions, like go to Mount Shasta and would run into aliens, in a human form.
Well,
And
that is very interesting that you should bring that up because Mount Shasta is notorious for having an underground base, and there is testimony or like there's been whistleblower testimony of some quite secretive things going on down there. So interesting you should mention
what
Mount Shasta.
from what I heard, let's see if our stories match up. Like the government are cooperating together in underground bases in different parts of the world, and that being one of them. Correct? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Mount Shasta being one of them. I think that some deep underground military bases, that's what they're called. They're called DUMBs, deep underground military bases. And they're not a secret, it's not a conspiracy, it's public knowledge that they exist. There's massive networks of them, all over the world. And yeah, I think some of them have some sinister things. I mean, who knows? Area 51 was once not on the map. It was classified. It was like supposed to be a myth, and now it's public. They disclose that it exists, and now it's like a tourist attraction. So I would say they're hardly going to do like alien stuff there because it's not very secret. Even though you can't go in, I would say they probably moved it. There's plenty of places they can move their experiments to, I would say.
Okay, I don't know, maybe because I know you do a lot of research with this. How long have aliens been known to be involved with humanity? If you could just give us, I don't want to say random, but because all of this is kind of unofficial, correct? Like a lot of it,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
speculation.
yeah, some of the topics that we touch on do have some very weighty cases to support them, right? And when we're talking about like someone has got a message from, say, the Palladians or the Zeta Reticuli race or wherever, and they're claiming to channel, of course, how do we know if it's authentic or not? We don't. So this is not based on any evidence. But some of the things that we talk about would be based on some quite substantial evidence. Um, yeah. So you were asking about the how far back does this go? Well, actually, I do have an opinion on that. I would boldly state that alien involvement with the human race goes back to the start of the human race. Now, there's a reason that I would make that assertion, is because of the ancient writings, but not only that, I'm talking about the collaboration of the ancient writings. A lot of the ancient texts tell the same stories, maybe in a different way. They're written in different languages, so different names are allocated, but they tell the same general story. And, if you look at the Bible was, that's the book that we're most familiar with. Well, the Bible is very much the same as a much older text, the Sumerian writings. For example, in the Bible, you've got the 7 days of creation. In the Sumerian writings, which was written 5,000 years before the Bible, you have the 7 tablets of creation, right? So 7 and 7, they're both using 7 days, 7 tablets. Okay, but the 7 tablets of creation go into a lot more detail. Is way more information, right? But uncannily, it's the same story. It's the same story, but more detail. Well, what does it talk about? It talks about those who from heaven to earth came. That is what the word Anunnaki means. Those who from heaven to earth came, right? So there was a race that came to earth. Well, the Bible speaks of the Elohim, which translates gods, right? So we're not talking about a single God. We're talking about a race of beings. They came and they made man in their image, right? There's a plurality. It's a race. It's a race of supreme beings. Well, Elohim, Anunnaki, tomato, do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, it's like we're talking about the same thing here, but with different languages from different parts of the world. Why do I say that? It's not just a feeling. It's also because in the Sumerian writings we've got language like King of Kings, Lord of Lords, the Most High. These terms are very familiar to us because we read them in the Bible, right? It's the same titles given to God in the Sumerian writings as in the Bible. The Bible is a rewrite of much older texts, and these titles for God are positions. So the Most High was a position that the King of Kings, the Most High, the kind of boss man, if you like, the president, the king, or however you want to put it, right? It was a position that Anunnaki that held, right? And it was for a term, which is interesting because we're talking about human involvement here. We're talking about alien and human involvement. So what happened was they came from heaven to earth. We were primitive, right? They genetically engineered us to be more like the gods, right? And that's confirmed in the Bible when God said, when they ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, God says, behold, man has become like us. We became like gods. Why? Because we were genetically engineered. Well, we know how to genetically engineer now. Well, not really, not on an advanced level, but we're coming into that knowledge. This is in modern science, is like moving into that realm of knowing how to clone, knowing how to genetically engineer. So, if you've got a race of beings that is
DNA.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean DNA, we know about DNA now and we can manipulate it. So if you've got a race of beings that is much older than us, they have already come into that knowledge long before we did. So maybe at our beginning, they were at the level of knowledge that we are now, possibly a lot further along the road. Yeah. So, it's not really very far-fetched to think that if they came here, they would kind of, modify life on Earth and modify the Earth to suit them. Yeah. So they changed us. They also gave us our systems, like government, court, education, agriculture, all this stuff sprung up quite fast. If you look at history, it did kind of come about quite fast. You were going to say something.
Yes, I want to go back though. You've said a lot of things. I've been holding on to this question. When you
Oh,
were
sorry.
talking about like order and stuff like that, you mentioned the Elohim. But I also thought, isn't that what people think angels are? That they come from or are the Elohim, no?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I would go with that train of thought also. I think that angels, though they may be special and have a special job to do, and they may be highly regarded and highly esteemed, what are they? What are they really? Well, they are of the same race, I think, as the gods, because, what is a god? I mean, you know, like we when we were in our primitive state, anyone that was like that came down and that came down from the sky, that was like advanced in technology and knowledge, they were gods.
Right, because of a lack of understanding what else it may be. I have a follow-up question because so the Elohim are the angels, and there are different, from what I've understood, different layers of angels, almost, I don't want to say like a military thing, but it does seem like a certain structure.
Yeah.
The other thing is, you mentioned a particular kind of alien, and I always wondered if the archangels are from there.
Okay.
What did you say, the Anunnakis?
Oh yeah, the Anunnaki. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. Okay. So according to the Sumerian writings, the Anunnaki, they are from a planet called Nibiru, and
Okay.
Nibiru. Yeah. Had you heard of that before?
Well, do you mean have I heard of that planet?
Yeah.
Yes, but keep
Okay.
going.
Yeah. So it's not an officially recognized planet. However, it is officially recognized that there is something in our solar system that is causing orbital perturbations of the planets. There is something with a significant gravitational influence that we can't see, right? So astronomers know that this happens. So what happens is like the outer planets that make a long orbit, right? They like a perturbation is where there's like a little disturbance, there's a little bit of an interruption, there's a glitch, they kind of like something's influencing them, right? And it's not the sun, right? Because obviously it's the sun that has that gravitational effect that causes the orbit of the planets. But there's something aside from the sun that is causing an interruption, a perturbation in the planet's orbits, and they don't know what it is. Well, it's interesting because a brown dwarf you can't see. You can only see it with an infrared telescope because it's not in that light spectrum that we can see it with our eyes. So you can't just kind of go looking in the sky and try and find, well, what is this damn thing that's out there? You need like an infrared telescope, which they sent to space, I think in the 70s, but I'm not sure. And again, more recently, and they have discovered that there's a brown dwarf, and it's on a very long, and this collaborates with the Sumerian writings. So Nibiru is on a long elliptical orbit. It's not like an ordinary orbit like our planets that orbit our sun. This, like we take 365 days to orbit the sun. That's a year. Well, the year for Nibiru is 3,600 years because it goes way out into space, like way out there. And then like it's not orbiting in a circle. It's like a huge oval, if you can imagine, right? It goes way out and it comes back in again, and then it goes way back out again, and that's the way it orbits. And so yeah, that's where the writings say that the Anunnaki are from. They're from Nibiru, and their purpose for coming to Earth, according to the Sumerian writings, is that they're having trouble with their planet, just like we are today. You know how we're having trouble with our planet because
Right.
it's like it's getting a bit.
Leads me into something else, because if that's the reason they're here, because I wanted to know if they were benevolent or not, but if that's why they're here, because they're having problems with their own planet, I mean, does that mean they want something from us, or are they trying to keep us from repeating their mistakes?
Well, that's very interesting you should ask because there is a mixed agenda. And the reason it's mixed is because there is discord among them, right? Because the Bible even speaks of war in heaven, right?
Adjust your camera because you just getting a part of your face. What?
I do
Okay,
apologize.
good.
Is that good? Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
so.
Okay, great. Yeah, so the Bible speaks of war in heaven. So there's disharmony and there's disharmony in heaven. So there's like conflict, just like here on earth, right? And there is I think that there's a part of the Anunnaki that want to use and abuse us for their own selfish reasons and treat us like property, have us do their dirty work, so to speak, whatever, just not really think much of us. Okay, maybe try and limit us, etc. But I think that there are some that are compassionate towards us. Um, it's interesting because there's two brothers, Enlil and Enki, and they are in disagreement. Some speculate that that it's in the Bible. It's like the devil and God, because They oppose one another, right? One wants to help humanity, the other one wants to control humanity. But that's a controversial subject. Maybe we shouldn't go down that road.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's steer clear of that.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
So I rather look for intentions that we know of, but it does make sense that there's positive and negative and everything, right? This planet itself is a polarity, right? A duality.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
it
It's
does
no,
make sense.
yeah, yeah. There's no difference out there to what there is here. It's like I'm in the UK, you're in America. We're not that different. We've got different
And what
cultures,
they
but we're not
say,
that
as
different,
above,
really.
so below. Like
Yeah,
that.
as above, so below.
So
Absolutely.
that does kind of make sense to me. But have they shared, I guess, say ones that are benevolent towards us, have they shared technology?
Yeah, I believe so. I can't say yeah. When I say yeah, I'm not asserting it as if I know. Of course, I don't know, but I'd say there's a very strong possibility because you look at our technological advancements. I mean, it's like they're huge. You know.
That's true. But there's also, if you go into Egypt, like I believe a certain amount of evidence because way back in the day, right? You
Mm,
had depictions of flying aircraft. You know what I mean? How is that even possible that they were
yeah.
drawing this stuff? And you had
Mm,
mentioned one time we were talking that it's in paintings that are hundreds of years old prior to the invention. So it just seems to me
exactly.
like, like something's up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, these artists, like, they must have seen things in the sky in order to think of painting them. That's the way I look at it. you know. And speaking of Egypt, the Egyptian writings themselves say that the sun gods built the pyramids. You know, I mean, we think in our modern times, we think that oh yeah, well they're going to say the sun gods built the pyramids because like they were primitive, they didn't know how to build the pyramids, and that perhaps they did build the pyramid. See, a lot of people think, oh, just a bunch of slaves like dragged the rocks, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. It's not feasible. The
Have you
quarry
ever
was like,
seen a reenactment? I've seen on certain channels where I guess people go, okay, let's have this expedition. Let's try to recreate it on a smaller scale. And they can't. Like they use the
no,
technology that was available, they figured was available. Like there's a lot of things like that you can't really reproduce it.
absolutely. I mean, do you know some of these rocks that were used to build the pyramids are 1,000 tons, and today the most advanced cranes that we have, cannot build a pyramid. And it's not just moving the rock from the quarry, right? But it's placing it on top of the last one
And
in
put a
a very precise
precision,
way.
exactly, the precision, the
Mm,
angle and everything. It just, a lot of the things don't add up. Like I like watching those shows and they try to disprove it, which is actually like, they can't give you a conclusive answer, like there's no way, but that's like evidence shows that it doesn't seem like that. It does seem like something had to be involved, something that
mm,
perhaps was alien to us.
mm.
And to me, looking
Yeah.
at the word alien, because of America, we have a lot of situations with aliens. And America was built on that, right? As the world,
Hmm.
the earth, we have people coming from everywhere, the melting pot.
Hmm.
I don't, that's kind of how I look at this other situation because it's just beings that are from other planets, other dimensions, other realities.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess it does matter though. Are they benevolent towards us? That is a big issue. And I think that's why most people are uncomfortable with aliens because they feel like they're advanced, they have technology, and if they're hostile towards us, we're in trouble. You know what I mean? It's a
Absolutely.
threatening situation. But what's the other side
Mm.
of that coin? If they already exist and they have this technology and everything, have we been like severely attacked like all the movies? No, we haven't.
No, that's right. Well, this is the thing. If there was an alien race that were really advanced, and they wanted to cause us harm, they would have done it by now
That's
because
how I feel.
they've had plenty of time. Now, with that being said, I do believe that.
Blow us up, take our what natural resources, or are they here maybe to help humankind?
Well, they certainly are able to destroy us, I would say. But those who would like to, for whatever reason, they could have done it by now. Why haven't they done it by now? It could be one or two reasons. First of all, the most obvious reason is that, in the vastness of space, our planet is a tiny speck. It's like a grain of sand. I mean, it's not easy to find anything in space. I mean, we haven't discovered all the planets. We're only seeing a tiny fraction of space. I would say there's a lot of races that haven't found us. Now, on that note, let me just elaborate just a little bit further. There are 100. No, sorry. Let me just get this right. There are 1 billion trillion stars in the universe. Right. That's a huge number, and we don't know the gravity. No pun intended, of that number. That's just an enormous number. It takes 32 years to count in seconds to a billion, but it takes 32,000 years to count to a trillion. And we're talking about a billion trillion. That's incomprehensible. Right? So the universe is just ginormous, and we know that every star has a planetary system, or certainly the vast, vast majority does. And we know that we harbour life in our solar system because we exist, and there's 7 billion of us here. Not only us, we get life everywhere. Life is abundant on the earth. So there's probably the universe is probably riddled with life, and the whole scientific community would agree on that point, right? The only question, the only controversy is, are we visited by aliens? Not do aliens exist, because the sheer mathematics would say that aliens do, but have they visited us? Now, of all the aliens that exist, and we're talking about probably millions and millions of advanced civilizations. I'm not talking about bacteria, I'm talking about advanced civilizations. The Most of them, like 99.9% of them, won't even know that we're here. Now, those who do know that we're here, that intend us harm, some people speak of, and there is, again, no evidence of this, but we're going by, what is the general opinion, the general thing that people are talking about. They talk about a galactic federation, right? Where there's like a council of representatives that care about not only the earth but care about the like community in space, if you like. I mean, you could view the Milky Way galaxy as a community of planets. And so there's obviously that potentially we can live as a community, we can trade among each other, we can learn from one another. I mean, there's a lot of benefits to be had by a galactic community, but every community needs, like some kind of a governance in order to protect.
Are you referring to the Federal Galactic? What do they call that? The
Um,
White Brotherhood or something?
yeah, there's a few names going around for it. There's a few names. But if we call it the Galactic Federation, right? I don't know. I mean, there's a few other names, and whether they're names of the same thing or whether there's different things out there, I don't know. But there is supposedly a law of non-intervention, that you can't interfere with another civilization because it can cause all kinds of problems. Which would answer the question, why is life so screwed up on the earth, and if there's anyone out there that can maybe prevent it. And we have to learn ourselves. We've got to find our own way. We've got to we've got to do it on our own. It's the same thing, if you're a parent, you've got children, sometimes you allow them to make their mistakes and suffer for it, because as a parent that it's a part of the learning process. And it's the same thing with perhaps alien beings and races that care deeply for us, but also allow us to evolve on our own. But at the same time, they would protect us if there was hostility coming our way. Some people speak of Star Wars. There are maybe battles in space unbeknownst to us that we're not aware of, where perhaps we're being protected.
I want to ask another question.
Yeah, certainly.
And this is, I think it I saw it on one of those shows again. I think you and I have spoken about it. Wasn't there an incident in England where a UFO landed? Like, was it on a military base or close to a military base? And then scientifically, right? Like there was evidence because there was not only eyewitnesses, but there was radiation that was measured afterwards, right? Wasn't there something like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's a very famous case in the UK, and it's nicknamed the English Roswell, right? Because, over in the United States, like, you guys have been talking about the Roswell incident like 50 years later, and probably will continue to because it was such a significant event. Okay, so we've got our own little Roswell story. So what had happened is there was a military base. Um, and when did this happen? Was it the 70s or the 80s? Well, it doesn't really matter, but it happened. It's a few decades ago, and there was a UFO that came into the forest of the military base. And what's significant is it wasn't your run of the mill everyday UFO sighting, okay? Because we are talking about trained observers, right? The military, they write rigorous written reports. There's a lot of them on duty. That day that happened was the highest ranking military officer in the UK. He was present and was one of the eyewitnesses. So you've got all these eyewitnesses, but not only that, but we do have physical evidence. There was scorch marks in the trees. There was indentations in the ground with the landing gear when the UFO landed. There was also radiation readings on the ground as well. There was a whole bunch, forensics were there. I mean, this is something that would have a full scale, full blown investigation. I beg your pardon?
I said that's quite fascinating. And by the way, it's late December 1980. That's when it was. So,
Oh,
and
okay.
let's see, unexplained lights near Suffolk, England, which
Yeah,
is
that's
linked with the
correct.
claims of UFO landings.
Hmm.
And it says the events occurred just outside RAF Woodbridge, which was used at the time it's used by the time United States Air Force.
Yeah, there was United States Air Force personnel at that
Yeah.
time.
What is it? Rendlesham Forest. That's where it was.
Yeah, Rendlesham Forest, that's the
Because I
one.
saw the reenactment. I mean, and I guess it was, I don't know, a little bit of a reenactment, but then they showed facts. You know what I mean? It wasn't like
Yeah,
let's just look at this. It was like trying to. There was no way to explain that, and how could you possibly, like you said, the landing gear, the radiation? That's what I find fascinating. Things like
absolutely.
that. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, that was a really strong case study for, the UFO community and UFOologists. I mean, like that's one that is extremely good. Um, but you know what? There are lots. That's a famous one. It got a lot of media attention. A lot of people talk about it. But there are multiple ones. In fact, you know, you can read archived, declassified files from the military, from the Air Force, pilots, the police. There's a lot of cases. Now, the thing about UFO cases, right, is that officially 95% of them can be explained by natural phenomenon or hoaxes or whatever, some kind of explanation. 5% cannot, but 5% of a large number because there are thousands of UFO reports coming in, right? That get documented, thousands per year, right? So 5% of thousands of cases is a large number. Now, here's the other thing, right? That of the 95% that can be explained away, it doesn't mean that it wasn't a UFO from another planet, whatever. Okay, because what they do is they would try and ascertain what air traffic is going around. Was there a plane going by that could have caused some confusion or whatever that could be involved in this incident, right? So they can either rule that out or not, right? There's also like celestial activity. Is Venus really bright in the sky? Is it, where's the moon? What's going on? What's the stars doing? So is there a meteor shower? So like they can find out these kind of things that happened at the particular time. Okay, but like that just because like it just so happens that Venus is over there, or that a plane was around that time kind of flying in that region of the sky, they would dismiss the case maybe on the basis that that is the explanation. But it doesn't mean that it wasn't a UFO. I mean, it could have been. It could be a coincidence that there happened to be a plane in that region of the sky around that time. But
Mhm.
what's really interesting? You've probably come across this yourself. Look at the Roswell case, right? What had happened in the Roswell case is you had this supposed flying saucer. It was in the newspapers, right? But then the following day, the newspaper headlines was that it was a weather balloon. So they changed the
Oh wait,
story.
oh
Yeah.
wait.
And swamp gas and weather balloons are the two most popular official explanations to dismiss UFO cases. And really, it's insulting to the public because we kind of know what we see. I mean, if we're sure that we can see something that is not normal, um, you know, then I think that we need to be given a bit more credit.
I just think, you know, benefit of a doubt, right? I think
Yeah.
that maybe they do that perhaps because some people are terrified of this possibility, again, because they feel vulnerable. So maybe that's why they have shielded us in the past. But I did want to talk about something
Mm.
that I worked in Manhattan when I was, geez, like 20 years old, just a summer job. And I met
Mm.
a man who was like 30 years old. He was an accountant, working for the New York City Housing Department, very substantial place. And he was a
Okay.
normal guy, just average guy.
Mm.
And I remember him telling me he was weirded out. They did a block party in the city. Now, a
Mm.
lot of people on a city block, you have a lot of people, middle of the day,
Mm.
and a UFO came down. Like it just went down the block. He said, like everybody saw it. It wasn't a matter of, did you see that? No, I didn't see that. Like everybody saw it. It was daylight, and it just went right down the block. Like I
Wow.
guess
Wow.
above, but
Yeah.
it really shook him up. Like I don't even know if he ever really knew what to do with that.
No, I can
The
imagine.
witnesses, you can't even say, maybe I was drinking a lot that day, or maybe, I dreamt that, but because the whole neighborhood witnessed it at once. And of course, it was never documented. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think they did say it was something like a weather balloon or something like that.
Wow, that's incredible. There are so many instances like that. And you know what really gets me? When I hear of a UFO case and like one person or two friends or one family is asserting this event, you would think, oh, well, you could it'd be 50-50 on whether it's true. But there are many cases where entire cities witness an event and they're all telling the same story. And that brings to my memory, have you ever heard of the Battle of Los Angeles?
I have.
Okay.
I
And
have.
when you
I
say you have, you mean the
went
movie or the actual event?
the actual event because it's
Mm.
I was in California a couple of years ago and I
Hmm.
was at that particular fort and they had an old screen movie type of thing. It wasn't a movie, but of events. It had the papers, like what was released and everything like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
I was in that spot.
Oh wow, that's fascinating.
So yes, I
Uh,
really do know what you're talking about.
Oh, you do? Okay. Well, for those who are like listening to this interview and maybe don't know what we're talking about, maybe shall I just like briefly go over what happened on that
Yeah,
day,
yeah.
or you can either
No,
myself or you.
go ahead,
Okay,
my
sure.
expert.
So, well, I wouldn't call myself an expert, but thank you. That's nice. Well, the Battle of Los Angeles is really interesting as well, and this is something I was just reading about the other day. And what had happened is, when was it? The 1930s?
Not sure if it was the 30s or 40s. Let me quick look it up. You tell the story, I'll
Yeah.
check it out on Google.
Okay. Right. So it's a short story. This is basically what happened. There was a fleet of UFOs that came over Los Angeles, right? There was one particularly very large one. It completely freaked the
The
military
mil-
out.
Yeah, because they thought it was we were in a war.
Yeah, they thought we were in a war. They thought it was an invasion. It
Well,
was
we
like
were in a
intimidating.
war, but that's why they freaked out.
Yeah, that's why they
Yeah,
freaked out. So anyway, they attacked, right? Not the UFOs. The military attacked. They started firing and shooting.
1942.
1942. Interesting. Okay.
February 25th, 1942.
Okay. Yeah. So the U.S. military were firing upon these UFOs, and for 3 hours, this happened. Now the interesting thing is that the UFOs did not fire back. They didn't even try and dodge the bullets. They just sat there in the sky. They moved slowly across the sky. They weren't the slightest bit phased. They weren't the slightest bit hurt. Eyewitnesses say that there was like some kind of a force field around them. The bullets didn't even hit them. But for 3 solid hours, they were firing upon these UFOs. And then, the UFOs, they just kind of like glided slowly across the sky and then they left. And like, none were shot down, but, neither did they retaliate. So it was really interesting. But the thing is that they reckon 1 million people were eyewitness to that event. 1 million people.
I'm reading now. Newspapers of the time published a number of reports and speculations of a cover-up. And I'm looking at pictures here that just really interesting photograph. Like, I'm going to put it up. It says, what is it? Searchlights and anti-aircraft guns comb sky during alarm. But yeah. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah. Maybe if you put it backwards a little bit because it was out of focus. And then if you
this way?
Yeah, about there. But now I think it will take a minute it's not actually focusing. But what I can try and do is when I'm editing the video for you, I'll try and put a slide into the video.
But how interesting that I was actually at this location.
Yeah, that is interesting. And it's funny as well because we've known each other a while. We worked together and yet we never had that conversation. That's
and what did I tell you? It's the balloons again. The weather balloons.
Yeah, weather
meteorological balloon. That's what it's saying. Sent up at 1 a.m. That started all the shooting. Yeah, sure. Because it never happened before, right? There was never a weather balloon prior to this incident.
Yeah.
It says firing started, imagination created all kinds of targets in the sky and everyone joined in. But there were news reports like inside this former camp because it's no longer open. And they were saying witnesses saw things. But again, speculation because people also say, yeah, but that's their imagination because they were fearing that. I don't know. I don't think it's an easy answer.
That's right. I mean, there's been cases in the UK where like there's been mass UFO sightings. There was an airport where a UFO was blocking the runway and the planes couldn't land. And that was happening for hours, and it was on the news. And then the next day, there was no mention of it on the news. And that's the thing, is that we are manipulated by the news because the news covers what the news wants to cover. And, if it's not going to talk about it, then neither are we.
Did you say the UK?
Yeah.
Because there was a case like that, I think, in Japan, where was it days or something, where and the government was just, I think, transparent with the country because they were like, they were honest.
Yeah, well, China. I know that that happened in China, but it was China, but maybe it was Japan as well. I mean, there's a lot of activity, It
might have been China. I don't know because this really isn't my field. Do you know what I mean? I've had experiences, but it's not my. I'm aware of it, but like I said, the way I think of aliens, I don't think it's a big deal for me to think of the archangels as aliens. I really don't. It just means a foreign being to me. That's it. UFO in China closes airport and prompts investigation, June 14, 2010.
Yeah, that's right, because I remember it, and it was only a few years ago, so 2010, that sounds about right.
I mean, that's just crazy to me. I had only heard about that recently.
Yeah, it was,
how is that not world news? Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yeah. It's big, that's the way they steer us, I mean,
crazy.
There'll be more news coverage of royals getting married.
I was just thinking the same thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The whole world knows about it, but the airport shut down in China, and nobody really pays attention to that. I find that crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would certainly rather hear, that that there's like something otherworldly hovering in our sky than like maybe two celebrities that are hooking up,
I
you know?
don't know. I'm trying to think of some other thing. I've heard of celebrities that have been taken, taken on board some ships, but I've actually, again in my 20s, at a party, and this
Hmm.
gentleman, again, had very nervous, like some of them, I know that people that you've met were very fine with it, comfortable. But
Hmm.
the one gentleman that saw it go down the block, he was very edgy about it. Like there was a nervousness, like it just made him uncomfortable having that experience. Then I met another man that I believe was taken more than once, taken on board ship, and he felt that they were, I don't know, studying him,
Okay.
and there was
Yeah.
something with the knees. It's like they were really interested in the knees. And I don't know if they were doing implants, because I have heard of some aliens not really having knees like we have. But anyway, he felt that he had implants and
Hmm.
he had a very nervous nature. It just seemed like it really, for this gentleman, really altered his life having that experience. And
Hmm.
dogs, like, always had an issue with him. He was a very quiet man. He didn't move fast or anything. Didn't make sense that dogs would have an issue with him, but it was almost like they sensed something was inside of this guy.
Interesting.
He
Wow.
no, he said, and his friend that had the party, she said that everywhere this guy goes, if there's animals, they react to him, not in
Wow.
a friendly way.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Cool.
but
That's.
he was a very nervous man. Like to me, it seemed like it ruined his particular life.
Mm.
Because he didn't like the idea that at any moment he could just be taken.
Oh wow. Did he live with that fear all the
He
time?
did. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
that's a
That
shame.
underlying
Yeah.
fear. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I know that you said you knew of someone, but she was very relaxed about the experience.
Yeah, that's right. I've known a mixture. I think abduction, in more cases than not, are traumatic for people. Because it is a bit intrusive to be taken and without your consent and abducted. I don't think like the benevolent races do it, because the benevolent races that we hear about, they would tend to talk to us in our own environment,
Right.
or in meditation or something, you know,
Exactly.
rather than like kidnap us, take us aboard a ship, and. But yeah, that's another interesting thing, is because we've had this whole conversation about this 3D universe, and like we're talking about the same dimension, the planets and possibly aliens from other planets. But then, of course, there's like a whole new world of conversation in like the 4D, the 5D, whatever, like other dimensions. And I think you were telling me once of an experience that you had in the astral realm, was it? Where you had encountered an alien, had you?
More than one occasion.
Hmm.
Um, but I guess you're talking about the one when I was in a meditation with a group. It was like a
Oh,
shamanic thing. So
okay.
there was a shaman present, I believe, and we were doing a meditation, a deep meditation, and pretty wild. Like we were doing some serious stuff. Again, I'm trying to say this in a polite way, but as far as you've known me, you know that I talk about I've had unusual experiences, but I don't believe I'm an alien enthusiast. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that, because you've got other interests that take precedent over it.
But it's also a matter to me
Hmm.
that I've explained to you and others. It's like somebody telling me that they're English or Irish or German or Italian. Yeah,
Mm.
that's how I feel. Yeah,
Mm.
okay. It My thing is, are you someone or being that's coming at me with love or harm? That's
Hmm.
what I want to know. I don't really care where somebody's from, and I don't mean that in a
Mm.
disrespectful term. If you're here to help
Hmm.
me, I'll take your help. If you're
Hmm.
here to harm me, then we're gonna have to talk. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So,
Mm.
and I don't think I feel particularly afraid or anything like that. And I was in
Good.
this meditation, so I'm not educated on aliens as well.
Hmm.
And in this meditation, all of a sudden, there was something that looked like, and I'm not an expert on bugs either. I don't know exactly what a praying mantis looks like, but it had these long claw-like legs.
Mm-hmm.
And it took one of these spiky things, and it had a bug, like,
Yeah,
it
others have
wasn't a bug.
described.
It
Mm-hmm.
was dark in color,
Mm-hmm.
and it seemed like a hard shell, but it could have been like, say, a costume or something like that. I don't know, but I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I thought it put a spear in my chest, or there was something in my chest. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought it was a spear, but now what I realized, it was part of it, that it poked through me right between my breasts, like into my rib cage.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I'm used to more loving experiences. I've had my share at times of not loving, but
Mm-hmm.
I had no reason to think something was going to try and do this. So telepathically, I said, "Are you trying to take that sword out of my chest, or are you putting it into my chest?" Because I could actually feel like it felt like my chest was breaking, my rib cage, whatever, and it hurt a lot. There was a great
Mm-hmm.
deal of pressure, and I felt it cracking, and I didn't know, are you foe or friend? When it didn't answer me and the pain didn't go away, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you're not my friend.
Yeah,
You're trying to
sure.
hurt me. And when I came to that realization, I just banished it. Maybe I asked for my beings to help me, my team, but like boop, just like that. I'm like, once I realized you're not here to help me, I just banished it. And
Right.
I
Excellent.
was
Excellent.
perfectly fine. So I don't
Mm.
want to scare people because we are empowered. I find that we have the ability to not allow things to happen to us. If you're going to be a little scaredy cat in a corner, like, oh my God, oh my God, of course
Yeah.
they can take advantage of you. But they're
Mm.
not going to, if you're going to be like, hey, I'm going to fight, or I'm not
Mm.
going to allow you to do that to me, people will
Mm.
back off. When you have that kind of confidence,
Mm.
and what other word would you call that? But I I just think that sometimes if I'm in a mood, people know to back off.
Yeah, sure.
It's just that energy.
Assertiveness. Assertiveness. Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
So, because I
Yeah.
wasn't in an angry mood, it was just like once oh, you're here to hurt me. Boom, just like that, it was gone. So we do have the power to do that. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes people think because we're in human form and stuff like that, but I do believe we are multi-dimensional beings. That's probably why I'm not fascinated by aliens as well, because I think we are aliens. One. Two, if we're multi-dimensional beings, there's a bit of
Mhm.
us in everywhere, no? Like, I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
saying
I
we're in every
agree.
universe, but I've
Mm.
met people that believe they're from Pleiades.
Mm.
So there are people that have told me they're from other places. And if we have that capability, why should we be afraid of something else? I don't know.
I agree. I agree. And I just had a thought. I think that an interest in aliens. If you felt an interest in aliens, it can be for me. It was a gateway, right? It took me into like the topics of spirituality. Yeah. So like that's how
Because
it
I think it's
started was with my
combined.
interest in aliens. Sorry.
I think it's combined. You came to
Mm.
spirituality through aliens. I think I came to aliens through spirituality
Sure. Yeah. Well, that makes
because
sense.
I have a great deal of connection to the archons. Like I really
Sure.
do. So maybe that's also why, for me, they're very positive because I think I have very good energy. I think I come from a good place. So the beings that are going to attract me from that same race, if you want to call it that, are
Yeah.
going to be sort of like my brothers, my sisters, my cousins,
Yeah.
right? Aren't the Pleiadians known to be very loving, very benevolent, like what people say about them?
Yes, they are known to be that way. That's
And they're
correct.
here to help the human race. So
That's
the
right.
people that have told me that they're from that race have been amazingly loving, giving, caring people.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I've heard the
again,
same.
why would you be threatened by that? They're here
Mm.
to
Yeah,
just
absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not saying I don't have an interest in aliens, like I find them boring. I'm interested
Mhm.
in people of other cultures, but I kind of think of it that way. I don't know if that makes any sense to you. I don't have the hype around it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it makes sense. Makes total sense. Yeah. and I would agree. And there is no need to be afraid, really, because I mean, look how long we've been going, you know. Um,
Exactly.
and yeah, and you know, like we're in more danger of ourselves than anyone else,
I would
you
agree.
know. I
I would agree.
mean, yeah, you're more likely if you go out at night to be harmed by a fellow someone of your own species than anyone else. So no, I don't think
See, I
there's a
don't even
reason
like
to
to
fear.
think that way because I think you attract that to you. Like
Yeah.
now, remember the other night I was out driving and I just felt very safe, very calm, very peaceful. In the past, I would have been more nervous, but I just feel so well protected now.
Hmm.
I think that's my belief, and I feel like I'm bringing that towards me. So I wouldn't want to
Hmm.
put that out there. But I would say
Yeah.
human race with not being kind to one another, if we could focus on if you love, say, your family, I
Hmm.
think it would be a benefit if all of us could treat everyone like they're part of your family or whatever it is that you love. But it's that lack of where we go. Maybe that's why I don't like separating all this stuff too, because people have a tendency to take care of their own.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I'm just not into that. Do you know what I mean? Why
Yeah.
why
Totally.
can't we just be kind and loving and helpful to all? It would be a better planet if we could do that.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree.
So, but
Mm.
I do know that the human race has had a tendency to struggle with anger and things like,
Yeah.
that it just seems
Mm.
like very base levels like of survival that they
Yeah.
struggle with, and that's where the aggression comes in because they feel like if you have it, then I don't. And I don't believe that to be true, but
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Well, we do have an animalistic nature. We're mammals. We have that in us. We're also highly sophisticated and advanced and spiritual and have amazing potential. And like you say, multi-dimensional beings are we're limitless. Really, we just don't know it. But we do
think
have
so.
we
You
do have an
just the
animalistic.
multi-dimensional as we tap into our higher selves, the multi-dimensional
Mm,
to that kind of energy instead of just a human, I believe that's how we evolve. Do you know what I
mm,
mean? And the more we evolve, we don't need to be rescued.
mm,
As we evolve as human beings, like each individual, I
yeah.
think that's the key to
Mm,
keeping the planet safe. We need
yeah.
to do our own work. Stop pointing your fingers at somebody else. Do your own work. And then people will see by your example that you're not the same person that they used to know.
Yeah, that's right. And it's like scales. I mean, I think that we're kind of doing okay because there are people that take responsibility and that think beyond themselves and their own like carnal needs and you know emanate love and that's keeping the scales tipped in our favor of survival.
I
And
think it's
it
getting better.
spreads. It
I mean,
spreads.
maybe we're being helped by more evolved beings. Maybe they're sharing love, compassion, teaching us how to open our hearts and things like that and evolve. We'll see. But
Yeah.
I think we've been on this for over an hour. I know we had our little break in between. Do you think now
Hmm.
would be a good time to wrap this up?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, yeah. Maybe in the future we can do another aspect of aliens if you'd like.
Yeah, because this was like we went deep and I think it was very interesting, but there's so
Mm.
many facets of it, that we
There,
could dive
there is.
into. So thank you
Yeah.
very much for spending this time with us. And everybody
Thank
that
you.
joined in that will watch us in the future, I really appreciate everybody joining us. So thank you, Jamie. As usual,
Well,
it's an extreme pleasure.
oh, thank you. Yeah, and for me also, I've really enjoyed it. So thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. So bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye bye.